Giving and receiving feedback are both art forms. Giving feedback can be awkward because you don't know how the other person is going to receive it. Receiving feedback is challenging because we all have a story, a personal account that we're constantly telling ourselves. Whenever we get feedback that doesn't line up with that story, we feel like that story is under attack or that we're under attack. And when we're under attack, we naturally get defensive. The more defensive we get, the less honest people are going to be in their feedback. So I want to teach you how to receive feedback so you can put yourself in a position to improve. Instead of sinking further into the mire, I want you to turn things around like Bob Merritt did. I want to teach you how to receive valuable feedback, even from people you don't deem credible. If you're serious about leveling up, growing, developing, and leading yourself, you have to get really good at learning from just about anyone. The first thing that is vital to receiving feedback is asking for it before it comes unsolicited. Everyone in your life should know that you're consistently looking for feedback. I've learned that when a lot of people know that you want to get better, they'll help you get there. You should not wait for a one-on-one to learn how you can get better. By the time that one-on-one is scheduled, you should have already had a list of things you can improve upon. You should seek it out from the people you care about. Honest feedback is best received by invitation only. In other words, if I didn't ask you for that feedback and you give it to me, that will most likely not be received well. However, by asking you for feedback, I'm actually putting you in a position to be a hero instead of a villain because I asked you for constructive criticism. If I ask you to read a rough draft of my book and give me feedback on how it can be better, and you say, hey, chapter 4 wasn't very clear. What is it that you were trying to communicate there? I'd say, oh, thanks for the feedback. I see what you mean. But if you buy my book and leave me a 3-star review on Amazon that just says chapter 4 wasn't very clear, I'm not sure what he was trying to communicate there. Same exact thought, except now I'm offended. That's also why asking for feedback is helpful. It puts you in a position to be less offended because you're seeking out now what could offend you later. The second thing that is vital to receiving feedback is taking notes. When it comes to receiving feedback, there's levels to that as well. Receiving feedback comes down to how well you can listen. Think about it. There are moments where you're talking to someone and you can tell if they're truly listening to you or not. Sometimes they're ignoring you completely. Sometimes they're pretending to listen or multitasking. If you have teenagers, you know exactly what it means to try and get an important message across to someone who's engaged with their phone and trying to listen to you at the exact same time. Sometimes there's selective listening where the person you're talking to is only hearing the parts of the conversation they want to hear. This is especially true in receiving feedback. Some people only listen to respond. In other words, they're just counting down the seconds until it's their turn to talk. But then there are those people who listen to understand and learn. The minute we start an important conversation, the other person's body language, especially eye contact, tells us everything about what's going on with their ears. So what I encourage you to do is to consistently ask for feedback, ask how you can get better, and when people respond, write it down. What writing it down does is it shows that you're giving the other person the utmost respect. You're communicating with your actions that what they have to say is valuable enough to write down and remember. How you receive honest feedback the first time will determine if there's ever a second time. This is one of the reasons I asked you to reach out to 3 to 5 people to ask them for words to describe you. Not only will the results be beneficial to your work here, but it shows others that you are open to receiving feedback. Now, here's the deal. In this lesson of this module, we're going to talk about actually taking action on feedback. But you need to know all feedback isn't feedback that you have to act on. Part of being a next level person that receives feedback well is being willing to receive the good, the bad, and the ugly. Part of this means you're managing your emotional triggers so that you can really engage with what the other person is trying to tell you and being open to seeing things from their perspective, namely their experience of you. This is why taking notes is helpful, because it gives you an opportunity to put your head down and write in the event that you're triggered by something they've said. All right, that way they ain't got to see your face. You can take it out on the pen, okay? So one of the organizations I speak for about once a month has what they call a culture of feedback. Every time I do a speaking engagement for them, there's a meeting afterwards where 4 or 5 people give me feedback. They also have 2 or 3 people who review content before I deliver my message and give feedback on that as well. When I first started working with them, I thought I was going to hate it. I thought, I do this for a living. And you mean to tell me I'm going to sit in a room with people who don't do this for a living and they're going to tell me how to get better? But what I did was I sat in that room with them for the first time and I simply pulled out my digital pencil and my iPad and I just started taking notes, preparing for an emotional onslaught. Turns out it was the exact opposite of my expectations. It was, hey, here are the points that really landed with us, and we want you to hone in on those more. There was this other story, though, that really didn't have a point. It was funny, but it distracted us from the overall point of the message. I'd consider cutting that. Here's the deal. I took their suggestions, and guess what? It made the message a lot better. And now they're my favorite group to work with. Honestly, they have a couple of team members that I wish would travel with me full time. Their feedback is always so helpful. In creating content for this course, there were several people who gave me feedback. We could play the who's a better writer game, or I could have put my foot down and insisted this is the way it has to be because I'm the instructor for this course. But why? How is that helping me? And who wants to work with that kind of person? Here's what I know about course creation. There are people who know a whole lot more about it than me. And it's better for me to take notes than assume I know everything and can do it all by myself. So remember, receiving feedback comes down to asking for it consistently and taking notes on what you hear. We'll talk about what to do with those notes in lesson 4 of this module. However, I first want to prepare you for what you will find in those notes. And those are blind spots.